Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let's talk about the Seth Rich case. Let's talk about Seth Rich. So Fox came out with a somewhat of a retraction, but let's add a little bit more context to this retraction because I thought it was somewhat interesting and what it didn't say. We want to update you to the story you first saw on Fox 5 DC. We want to make an important clarification on claims that were made by Rod Wheeler, the private investigator hired by Seth Rich's family, whose services are being paid for by a third party. What he told Fox 5 on camera Monday regarding Seth Rich's murder investigations is in clear contrast to what he said over the past 48 hours. Rod Wheeler has since backtracked. In an interview on Monday, now let's go this far. On Wednesday, just before a newscast, Wheeler responded to our request via a telephone conversation where he now backtracks his position, and Wheeler characterizes his on-the-record and on-camera statements as miscommunication. When asked if Wheeler is still working with the Seth Rich family, Wheeler told Fox 5 the contract still stands. Ties have not been severed. Now, I don't want to get into the whole thing between Wheeler and the family. My question is, what did he backtrack on? Did he backtrack on all of it or some of it? They're not being clear on it. Like, so if I say, yes, I've seen these documents. They say, well, hey, have you actually seen these documents? Okay, I didn't see these documents, but I knew somebody who saw the documents. That is a backtrack, but that's not necessarily backtracking on what he's saying he saw. Now, understand my position on this. In my other video, I made this point of take all this stuff with a grain of salt. We don't know for certain. And I was right. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm still staying with that position. We have no idea what took place. We have ideas, we have insinuations. We even have, to some degree, of something that says, okay, this sounds like it makes sense. Meaning, I could believe it if it's true. So we have that, but I think that's still what we're left with. Him backtracking it's murky. It's kind of murky. It's like backtracking on what? Is he calling himself a complete liar and saying, yes, I backtrack on everything? Or is he backtracking on a specific point? That's what I'm getting at. Now, H.A. Goodman. H.A. Goodman is an animal. I love the guy. So, even when I disagree with him, I like him. He comes out and he writes a piece in Counterpropa going after these people who are saying the story is bogus or the story is bunk. And he makes some really good points. So one of the main points he's getting at is this story may have fell apart, but what aspect of it fell apart? I'll give you an example. As a software engineer, someone says, my internet is broken. I don't know what that means. What do you mean, the entire internet? All the computers that are linked to that thing are broken? Oh, the site doesn't work. What do you mean? The entire site is down? The entire website is not working? Or is there some aspect of it's not working? What I'm getting at is saying that he retracted doesn't necessarily tell you what he retracted. Is the man calling himself complete and utter liar? Or is he saying, no, on this specific point, I misspoke? There's a difference in those things. One is focused on, I misspoke on a very specific issue, but the overall thing that I'm saying is true. Technically, that's a backtrack. But that doesn't necessarily change the spirit of what he's saying. That's what I'm getting at. The question is that the case? Is that the case? Now, H.A. Goodman makes this point. Let me see. He's arguing with this guy from CNN, but one of the main good points that I like, and the point that I came back to when I was analyzing the story, even though I said, well, look, I don't necessarily know if the story is true. Take it with a grain of salt. It's coming from Fox News, etc., etc. But Wikileaks was kind of strong on the story. Like when this stuff came out, Julian Assange retweeted the story. Not just retweeted the story. He kept coming out with additional tweets from Wikileaks. Most comprehensive report on developments of DNC staff for Seth Rich's murder investigation for Fox. Seth Rich's new family spokesman is Brad Bauman, a professional Democratic crisis PR consultant with Pastorum Group. Like, then they put out a WikiLeaks thing. Agree, let me see, this is John Podesta. Agree, happy to talk to the Davids. Call me crazy, but I think if we can survive the next month, it will be possible, maybe even straightforward to get our arms around this once there's actual campaign. I'm definitely for making an example of a suspected leaker, whether or not we have any real basis for it. Now, Wikileaks, again, posted this email. Our original statement Our original and only statement on the murder of U.S. Democratic National Committee staffer Seth Rich. Now, their statement is, as a matter of policy, we do not confirm or deny whether any person has ever been a source for Wikileaks. After the Art Swartz case, we formalized this policy and also covered alleged sources who are deceased. Now, they're making this point of, look, we're not going to tell you whether Seth Rich is a person or not, just based on policy. We do not reveal who our sources are. That being said, when you offer a $20,000 reward to find a killer of a particular person, just a random person, we're offering $20,000 to find that person's murder. Hey, do you have any connection with that person? We are not allowed to say that we're connected with the person, but just a random person we're giving $20,000 for. That's kind of what I mean. Even putting out all these leaks, WikiLeaks are putting one thing after another. One saying, hey, this is more investigation on the staffer. Hey, you should pay attention to the staffer. Hey, this staffer is important. Why is some random DNC staffer important to WikiLeaks? That's the question. That's what I keep coming back to. Like when they're saying, oh, this is bunk. Michael Tracy came out. Oh, this is bunk. The story is ridiculous. Okay, I understand there's a chance, but why is WikiLeaks involved? Why does WikiLeaks care? Like, why would WikiLeaks care one iota if a DNC staffer was murdered, if it was completely unrelated to WikiLeaks? That's my problem. That's why I'm doing this story. I'm making this point of, I understand people want to completely classify the story as bunk, but is the story actually bunk? Or is there merit to the case where it needs to be investigated? I'd argue the case needs to be investigated. Dude backing up on one thing doesn't necessarily mean everything was false. And if he's making this case of, look, the evidence that we're looking for is on the computer, shouldn't we check the computer? Shouldn't we check the computer? Just whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or anybody else, if you're doing an investigation and you want to find the brass tacks of the investigation, people are making illusions saying, hey, the DNC had Seth Rich murdered. Okay, why would the DNC have Seth Rich murdered? It's possible that Seth released WikiLeaks things, meaning not Russia, but Seth. Okay, if that's true, how do we confirm that? We confirm that by looking at the computer. This is just a logical process of what to do. Why is this logical process of what to do somehow eluding everybody else? Shouldn't we see what's on the computer? Shouldn't what's on the computer be the definitive thing about whether or not Rich was the person who leaked it? And why is CNN and all these other sources fighting about it without ever actually seeing what's on the computer? Like, to me, that's just what it boils down to. It's, what are you guys arguing over? Open the computer. What's on the computer? Are there documents on the computer relating to information that was sent to WikiLeaks? Yes or no? I don't care if you think the story is bunk. I care about the evidence. What does the evidence say? All these guys are having these conversations, and H.A. Goodman, to his credit, he's like, whoa, wait a minute. You guys are dismissing the story way too soon. You guys aren't really giving this story a fair investigation. And H.A. Goodman would be correct. He would be correct. And the argument that H.A. Goodman making in Counterprofa is a decent argument. I like it. Now, that doesn't mean that the story is true. Nope, doesn't mean it at all. It doesn't mean that the story is completely meritorious. Meaning it doesn't necessarily mean that Seth Rich was the leaker. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that you're in the process of an investigation. In the process of that investigation, you need to actually see the evidence. Meaning, you need to see his computer. You need to see his computer. And all this other stuff about, oh, this is bogus. Oh, this is awesome. All these things are irrelevant. What's on the man's computer? Let's have that conversation. Everything else is just people talking. I care about the evidence. But I will say this. It is immensely strange that Julian Assange would take issue or take a role in this if there was no connection between the two. That's immensely weird. That's immensely weird. Has Julian Assange jumped into the fray of anybody else who's murdered? I'm unaware of it. I'm unaware of it. But he has jumped into this particular fray. So, I trust Julian Assange over any Democrat. Full stop. And yes, WikiLeaks is not saying it based on policy. But at the point where WikiLeaks is saying, putting out one article after the next about Seth Rich, particularly with the idea that he was slain, and particularly with the idea that he was associated with WikiLeaks, and saying, no, we're not saying it, we're just putting these articles out, saying that we were trying to find who killed Seth Rich, and that we were putting up a reward for the killer, but we're not saying that Seth Rich was the leak. On policy, we're not saying it. I don't think people are crazy for saying, wait a minute, there's smoke here. I don't think they're crazy for it. Now granted, it's possible that it's false. Yes, it's possible that Seth Rich had no connection. I have to be honest though, I'm erring on the side of Yeah, I feel myself erring on the side of there looks like something here. There looks like something here. I understand all these people want to dismiss this as being bogus conspiracy theory. And I'm not saying the DNC had him murdered. None of that stuff. I'm talking about specifically whether or not he had anything to do with sending the information from Wikileaks. And I'm saying that until they should open the computer. And this idea that they're dismissing the story is a little premature. That's all I'm getting at. I'm not taking any stance in the sense of whether it's accurate or not. I'm just saying I'm erring on the side of what's on that computer and whether or not that computer showed any connection to Wikileaks. And if it did not, why is Julian Assange so interested in this particular case? I think those are fair questions. Those questions should be answered. And trying to dismiss this as, oh, this is conspiracy theory, oh, this is bogus, oh, this didn't take place. You haven't even seen the laptop. You haven't even seen what's on the laptop. How are you dismissing a story without seeing the evidence? I can see if you're existing in this ambiguity. But they're outright dismissing it, calling the story bogus and everything else. What's on the laptop? What's on the laptop? Don't tell me, show me. Like, don't tell me that the story is bogus. Don't try to convince me that the story is bogus. Show me the evidence. Let me make my own conclusion. If the DC Police Department, for whatever reason, has made the decision that they don't want to break open the laptop or they don't want to show that information or reveal that information, then no, you can't make any assessment on this particular case because you don't have the evidence to make the assessment on the case. Michael Tracy is wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Ultimately, you need to see the information before you come down hard one way or the other. You're left with ambiguity of just not knowing at that point. Did Seth Rich leak the information to WikiLeaks? We don't know. Does Michael Tracy know? No. Does the CNN guy? No. They don't know. They don't know. They haven't seen all the evidence. They don't know. Any story calling this is bunk is bogus. It's bogus. Until you see the evidence, there's no way to know. That's the point I'm getting at. I'm not saying Goodman is right. I'm not saying CNN is wrong. I'm saying neither party knows. H.A. Goodman, in this particular case, I'm saying, is right in the sense of saying, well, wait a minute. They haven't seen all the evidence. You guys are trying to say the story is bunk, and you haven't even seen the laptop. You haven't even seen what was on the laptop. How are you making some determination without seeing the evidence to make that determination? That's the point H.A. Goodman is making, and H.A. Goodman is right. It doesn't mean that the story is right. It just means that H.A. Goodman is right, and it's just pointing at saying, wait a minute. You don't have all the evidence to come to this assessment. You're coming to this assessment prematurely. What's in the laptop? Let's have a conversation after we see what's in the laptop. Good on Goodman. He's right. He's right. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's see what comes out of this. I mean, granted, this is, again, I'm still ambiguous. I'm still in this position of, who knows? It's possible that it's true. It's possible that it's not true. It's Fox News. Take it with a grain of salt. I wouldn't just immensely dismiss it that fast, though, particularly if WikiLeaks is getting involved in the investigation and WikiLeaks is quoting stuff saying, hey, pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. They've sent like 5 or 6 tweets on it. Pay attention to this. No, we're not saying Seth Rich is a leaker. We have a formalized policy of not revealing the leaker, even when they died. But pay attention to this. I'm saying, if WikiLeaks is saying pay attention to it, you probably should pay attention to it. Not saying take it to be true, just saying you should pay attention to it. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon.